Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. I'm back for another Nightmare on Elm Street film review. This is a very controversial one. It's the second film in the franchise. This is a Nightmare on Elm Street 2, or Part 2, Freddy's Revenge. And this box set is what I watched, and I love this black and red box set. I will say that in every single review that I upload for this series. I decided the other day I'd start rewatching these because I love Nightmare on Elm Street. It's my favorite, tied with the Saw franchise. It's my favorite horror franchise or just movie franchise of all time. I love it to death. Figured it'd be a nice treat for you guys. It's also Easter weekend. Happy Easter, guys. Tomorrow. Today is Saturday. Tomorrow will be Sunday. And that's pretty cool. Freddy's Revenge. Why is it called that? It's not really a revenge movie by any means. It's kind of a stupid-ass title to give it, but it's there. Whatever. Pretty much no one came back to do this one because it was kind of a rush job, I think. It came out in 1985. The first one came out in 1984 and was a surprise hit. Like, it was a sleeper hit, but it was a fantastic movie and everybody loves it. It's still a classic to this day, in my opinion, and in most of the horror community's opinion. I would say that. This one is, in my opinion, extremely underrated. I really like Part 2. It's not the best of the franchise, but arguably it's up there. I would say it's way up there. That's also coming from somebody who really loves most of these movies. And then I like even the bad ones, because it's Freddy Krueger, it's Robert Englund. Why would you not give a shit about this? There's a lot to talk about with this movie. It is a spoiler-free review, just as always with this channel, unless it's not, and I put a spoiler warning in the title or something, or tell you at the beginning of the video. But I love Nightmare on Elm Street, as I said. This one has pretty much no one coming back. Heather Langenkamp's not back. Pretty much no one. Pretty much no one. This is starting off on a fresh foot, and it kind of begins that potentially episodic nature of these until 3 comes back and says no to that. But some of these movies have that episodic feel, and I like it, and I kind of understand why they don't have that sometimes and why they do sometimes. It's neat regardless. I enjoy it. I love the creativity behind the kills in this franchise. One of the things that surprises me with this movie is there's not as much killing in it. There's really not. There might be like 3 or 4 deaths in the entire movie. It's really kind of pulled back away from what the first film does. And the extreme hardcore gore that was in the first movie is not in this one as much, but there's still some horrific stuff that scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. When I would see this on like TV or rent it from Hollywood Video, which was my movie place, not Blockbuster. I went there sometimes too, but Hollywood Video was better, at least in my area. I love this movie. I do not understand why people don't like this one. I get the whole thing, like, this is considered the gay one, because of all the things that are very odd in this movie. There's no way people didn't realize what they were doing with this. It's bullshit. Don't believe it for 2 seconds. I don't care what the people said in the Never Sleep Again Nightmare on Elm Street documentary. They lied. They knew. They knew what they were doing. I don't care. Anyway, this one is directed not by Wes Craven. This one is directed by Jack Scholder, who did Arachnid. I think I've seen that once upon a time, a long time ago, like early 2000s, when I was a very young kid. This is written by David Chaskin. It stars Mark Patton, by the way. This is a very odd movie when I watch it. Every single time I find new things about it, whether it be flaws or good things I hadn't noticed before, or just funny things with all the weird homoerotic stuff in here. It's a really fun movie. I love it a lot. I think it has so much to offer. And it goes from that really dark, scary nature of the first movie to kind of beginning to make this series into a comedy. I would say this is kind of the one that starts to do that. And I really like it. I think it works for what this franchise needed to become. And I do agree that I wish the series had stayed scary, right? I get that. I understand. But I like what we did with it over time. I like the evolution of the Freddy character. I like how he changes. In this movie, they kind of keep Freddy in the dark still. They change the makeup. They change the eye contacts to be these bright orange, big old eyeball things. And I like that a lot. It looks really good. He's kind of scary. He kind of looks like that demon Freddy from Freddy vs. Jason, just a little bit, just a tiny bit. It's almost like that in New Nightmare were the biggest influences on that when Freddy vs. Jason was made. But I really dig it. I think there's a lot to offer from this movie, a lot of goofy, fun, mostly fun stuff, but not much killing and gore, surprisingly enough. Now, what is this movie about? Basically, we have a kid named Mark, or not Mark. What is his name? Jesse? Yeah, Jesse. He and his family move into Nancy's old house from the first film, and Jesse starts having a lot of nightmares and stuff. One of the things they notice is that the air conditioning isn't working, so the heat is really damn hot in that house. Everybody's sweating through most of this movie if they're in that house. there's a lot of weird things that happen with this hot house thing, but Jesse starts having nightmares where he starts encountering Freddy Krueger, that he does not know who this is. You have a really cool cameo with Robert Englund playing a bus driver. Robert Englund brings it so much in this movie. He's still kind of a scary Freddy, but they kind of start leaning more into that comedic aspect with his dark humor, and I like that, frankly. It works really well. The movie is odd. There's some odd choices made for this, not just because of the homoerotic nature of a lot of it, but just most of this movie is just odd. One particular scene involving a bird. It has some odd, very strange choices made in the script, but it works really well. I really like it. The music is different. It's not that synthwave type of thing. I think it's good, but it's not the synthy type of stuff. The female lead in this movie, Jesse's little girlfriend, she looks like a young Meryl Streep, and I think I heard somewhere from like the Skeleton Crew show or something, I heard from someone that she was casted because she looked like a young Meryl Streep, which made sense because she was like the hot item at that point, supposedly. But again, you have to kind of be patient with this movie and kind of just laugh your way through it a little bit. Jesse, played by Mark Patton, I don't know how much of a good actor he is. I haven't seen really anything else he's been in, frankly, as far as I know. Maybe he is a good actor, I don't know, but the directing style for this movie looks a lot like a Wes Craven movie, a lot like the first film. The sets look like they're identical if it's not the same exact house. But what I will say is that Jesse's performance, I don't know if it's his fault, Mark Patton's fault, or the script's fault, or whether it be the director's fault. I don't know who it is to blame for this, if not everybody. And he's bad. He's really bad. Heather Langenkamp wasn't the best. She's not the best actress in the first film. She gets better in 3 and in New Nightmare when she comes back. But she is not great in that first movie. She's really not strong enough to carry that movie, in my opinion. It's not even like she's playing a sheepish character. She's just kind of boring, frankly. She's kind of like Neve Campbell in all the Scream movies. I don't understand the infatuation with her specifically, and whatever. But Heather Langenkamp's the same situation. Seems like a nice lady in movies and in documentaries and interviews, but in the movies not so much. She's not a good actress, at least in the first one. Mark Patton's kind of the same situation. And in this movie, they have him screaming in like every single scene. He's getting scared to death and literally screaming his guts off, or guts out, something like that. One of the things that I thought was interesting with this movie the first time I saw it, and I still think it's interesting, is how Freddy is trying to use Jesse to get into the real world. And I used to love that idea, and I kind of get why they went that route. Because, of course, Freddy can only harm you if you're asleep, or if you're in your dreams, and also if you're afraid of him, right? Because from what we found out from the first movie. Then the rest of the series kind of contradicts that a little bit. The Skeleton Crew pointed out something very particular, especially Alex from that show, that podcast I love to death. I recommend it highly if you haven't listened to it before. Alex pointed out something very interesting, like, why would you want to come to this world and this reality if you can kill people in their dreams and stuff? What would you want to do here? Because when you did that in the first film, you got the shit kicked out of you. Why would you want to do it as a supernatural being that we don't know how you got that ability? What would make you want to do that? There should have been some kind of plot point to explain why Freddy wanted to do that aside from just being a cruel bastard, And you can argue some scenes of this movie are just straight out like a dream sequence that aren't defined as a dream or that anybody fell asleep. I think 3 and 4 kind of have moments like that too. I've watched about halfway through 4 right now. And it still seems like there are moments like that it doesn't make sense why this or that would happen in the dream world. But even so, I really don't have much to say about this movie. Each of these movies kind of blend together over time for me. Especially 4, 5, and 6, they become mush in my head, just one big movie for some reason. Even though I love them all, pretty much. So, Part 2 is a wild ride. It's very odd. If you've only seen the original movie and you've never seen this one, I will recommend it to you, number 1. But number 2, you got to prepare yourself mentally. Going into this, it's not the same thing as the first movie. It's similar, but it's not the same thing. Now let's talk about the cast, aside from Mark Patton, who again was just really bad in this movie. I think it's a little bit of everybody that was the problem there. The dad character in the family, I really like him. I thought he did a really good job. Mom is fine. The younger sister or whatever, she was okay, I guess, as a child actor. Robert Englund, once again, steals the show here. He's really great. Every time he's on screen, you can't help but watch him. There's some really horrific stuff that he shows in this movie. Like, I love this one scene where he tells Jesse, like, you have the body and I have the brain. You know the thing from the Will Smith song from back in the day, Nightmare on My Street? And Robert Englund pulls his hat off as Freddy, and then he just pulls his scalp back and shows all of his brains thumping and pulsing. Dude, it is so horrific, and I love it. It's a great scene done in the dark. There's so much cool stuff in this movie. I love the ending of the flick. Not how Freddy is the solution with that situation. I don't really like that part, but the setup to the ending, I really love. It's really good. There's a whole pool party scene in here I don't want to tell you too much about in case you haven't seen the movie, but that scene went on for a while and then it really built up. A lot of this movie, there's not much happening kill-wise, but when it really gets to the end, like the last third act of this movie, I guess you'd call it, that's really wild. Really wild. Some really cool effects, some really fun stuff. And a lot of these practical effects in this movie look cheap compared to the first movie's effects. But I would say that I do like a lot of this. A lot of it's really good. A lot of it's really fun. So I had a blast with this. I really love Nightmare on Elm Street 2. I cannot believe people do not like this as much. I think a lot of people are coming around to it. I know Alex from Skeleton Crew really loves it. Sinister Cinema Reviews, I think, likes it as well. There's a lot of people coming around to this movie now and saying it's good, and that it was fun or whatever. And I'm glad for that, because it deserves some credit. It's a good flick. I think it deserves to be on TV with Nightmare on Elm Street when we have AMC Fear Fest on TV, if they still do that. I don't think they do, but if they do, they should have this on. I really like it. I recommend it if you haven't seen it before. Like I said, just prep yourself. It's different. So anyway, when it comes to this 1985 sequel to A Nightmare on Elm Street, I would probably rate, on a 5-star basis, I'd probably give Part 2 about a 4 out of 5 stars. I think it's, quality-wise, it's not as good as the first movie, but I do love it about equally. I think the same flaws are here about the directing style not being great. I think that the acting is, particularly with Mark Patton, it's rough. He's our main character. He's hard to listen to. Robert Russler's in this as the best friend character, sort of, kind of, not really at first, but kind of over time. And he's like a jock, whereas Jesse is just kind of an idiot. He doesn't really have like a clique. He's not a nerd or anything. Robert Russler's really solid here, by the way. I forgot to say that. The Meryl Streep girl is fine. She's pretty, but she's just okay. I really dig this. This is a really good movie. I can't believe people don't like this movie. It just blows my mind. Anyway, I'd give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It might seem like a little high to a lot of people, but a 4 for me just means really, really good, but flawed. You know, that's all I really consider. It's kind of like a Netflix rating type of thing when they used to do the 5-star thing. Anyway, what are your thoughts, guys? Put them down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Thank you for watching. God bless you guys. Is this your favorite of the franchise? I'd love to hear all that down below, too. If you hate this movie, why do you hate it so much? I'd love to hear that, especially from people who don't like it, because I want to know. It's a good flick. I'd love to hear what people say about it in debates and in discussions on things like that on Reddit and whatever comment sections I'm looking at. Anyway, happy Easter, guys, this weekend, and God bless you once again, and goodbye.